Hey, Rebels, welcome into Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we cover the stories the mainstream media largely ignores. And right now, the mainstream media is actively trying to scuttle peace plans in Alaska with President Trump and President Putin. Zelensky will also likely be there, of course. But man, the neocons, the war hawks, just read the headlines. They're like, why Putin is already lying to Trump. This is not going to end well. They're actively trying to sabotage peace plans in Alaska. But we are going to talk all about it today.
Plus peace in Washington, D.C. That is the proposal of President Trump. But will it work? And is this a good idea? You might like it in theory, but there are things that we need to talk about, because do we want a full federal takeover of all law enforcement in every liberal city? Maybe you like that idea, but we have some thought experiments to see how that might be scary.
Also, coming up later in the show, we're going to talk about the Masonic and the dark satanic forces that have taken over the Mason plan for Washington, D.C. Why this is actually a much larger plan than meets the eye, what Trump is trying to do in Washington, D.C., the dark forces that are currently controlling the nation's capital. And we're also going to talk about a real war on drugs, potentially, the attack on cartels in Mexico. Mexico's not playing good with the Trump administration. Claudia Sheinbaum not happy with American forces maybe entering their country to go after these drug cartels. So a lot of news to talk about on today's show. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, being a part of our program here. By the way, if you do subscribe, or if you follow us, if you're a new subscriber, your name should pop up on the big screen. Is that right, David? It should still pop up on the screen, I think, anyway. Welcome to the Rebellion.
That's correct.
Yes.
On the bottom
correct.
and
okay.
on the back screen.
And we're also trying our new system now with different comments. So if I click on one of these comments over here, and it should pop up on the screen. Let's see if that works. PJ, no, it didn't. Well, I tried it.
Well, I saw it. There we go. D.C. is the hub of the federal government. Pointless sensationalism. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Thank you for that perspective. I'm going to keep that in mind when we talk to our guest later on today. Thank you so much.
All right. We're going to do all that. But first, the U.S. just blew past $37 trillion in national debt, which is a new record. And with interest payments topping $1 trillion a year, Washington's only solution is to print more money. That means more inflation, a weaker dollar, and your savings losing value every single day. This isn't fear, it's a fact. And war only accelerates it. Endless conflicts, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, all fueled by borrowing money, printing money at the Federal Reserve. That's what we do. So we're watching the U.S. debt. We're watching the U.S. dollar, which is down 27%. And we're watching gold and silver surging right now. Goldman Sachs is predicting that gold could hit over $4,500 an ounce by 2026. And Morgan Stanley just came out with their numbers for 2029, over $6,000 an ounce. So Natalie and I are big investors in gold and silver, and it's one of the smartest, safest ways we've made for our family. Even our kids have their IRA plan, which invests in precious metals. This isn't a fad. This isn't a shift. And our friends at Lear Capital can help you do this, can help you invest in precious metals. So call their 800 number, 1-800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com for your free investors kit. Again, 1-800-613-3557, or go to LearRedacted.com for your free investors kit. They'll jump on the phone with you. Do it now before this next crisis hits, because Moody's is predicting a U.S. recession coming up in the next few months. Do you believe it? I certainly think that we are in deep, deep trouble right now. $37 trillion in debt and $1 trillion in interest payments alone. So, yes, give our friends at Lear Capital a call today.
Well, Ukraine will, in fact, give up eastern Ukraine. They will never give it back. That they would never win it back. They never could. This is something we've been saying for years now, and it may soon become a reality. The Telegraph is reporting that Ukraine has softened on this idea of taking back that land. I mean, they never could, but okay, save your pride if you want to. But Zelensky knows for sure that this would spell the end of his presidency and his rising star. He's only still in office because he continues to extend martial law. His approval ratings have plummeted. He will not hold elections. He most likely would not win them if he did. Now, if President Trump and President Putin come to an agreement later this week in Alaska, he's done. Zelensky's done. He'd have to allow elections, and his celebrity and money would be gone. What money, you say? Oh, here on Redacted, we've been reporting for years that his inner circle has been funneling money from our U.S. aid into their own personal coffers. Now, outlet in Turkey is reporting that is to the tune of $50 million per month. That's our money that we send abroad that has crashed the economy in the U.S. and Europe. All right, for some, this was done through a bank in the UAE, but there's a separate report of theft of cryptocurrency through a bank in France. Now, again, this isn't new to us here on Redacted. We've been reporting this aid theft since 2022, but okay, it's still happening. Why has that not been cut off? Now Zelensky's saying, yeah, you might come up with a peace deal, but I, as the president of Ukraine, cannot go along with it because Constitution. All right, this crazy Telegraph headline admitting that this is to save Zelensky himself more than Ukraine. President Trump didn't like that. He said he would try to get back some oceanfront property, but he's annoyed at these excuses that Zelensky is giving preemptively. Watch.
They need, but I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines.
All right. Well, Colonel Davis joins us today, Daniel Davis, and on his show, he is predicting for months and months and months that Ukraine would never get this territory back, and they continue to lose it. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. What is your sense of this? Deal or no deal? Are we going to get something this Friday, or are we just going to keep dragging this out?
Well, that really depends a lot on President Trump, whether there's going to be a deal, because I think especially because of what's going on the Eastern Front right now, north of Pokrovsk and around that area where the Russians have made a massive breakthrough, the biggest one in 2 years. It's not minor. It's also not something that's just a fluke. It's reasonable and predicted. That's going to put even more power in Putin's hands. Actually, the power was already in Putin's hands in terms of leverage. This just really makes it into stark reality about what Russia can do and what Ukraine can't do. So I think that probably Putin is going to say, hey, we're going to reiterate what we're willing to do back in June of 2024, on the 14th of June, when they said it's all the administrative borders of all 4 of these provinces plus Crimea and demilitarization, denazification. And I think if he doesn't get those, and he's going to say politely, we'll just keep going on. What you saw happen in Pokrovsk is going to continue to happen in other parts of the front, and either you get an ugly deal right now, or we'll just take what we want, and that's probably going to be at least up to the Dnieper River and may well include both Kharkiv and Odessa. So I think that's what is on the table here, and whether Trump agrees to that or not, it seems pretty unlikely that Ukraine and Europe will agree to it, because I think that the sides between Trump and Europe and Ukraine is further away than Trump and Putin, which is kind of embarrassing, but that's kind of where we are.
You know, for a long time, we've been hearing President Putin holds all the cards. You know, I think MAGA individuals think that Trump really is the driver of all of this. But as you just pointed out, they keep making major advances. The Ukrainian military has been crumbling, recruiting 60-year-olds and now 14-year-olds to fight. So they can keep pushing. They can keep sort of like this war of attrition, keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I just want to put up the map here on the screen because just so our audience understands this. I mean, that whole area in pinkish, I guess, salmon, appropriate for Alaska, salmon, that's what Russia, that used to be Eastern Ukraine. It is now mostly the Russian Federation. They voted to become overwhelmingly Russian. They voted in elections to become Russian. This idea that the mainstream media keeps referring to it as Eastern Ukraine as if Putin's going to give this land back now that they're officially part of the Russian Federation is kind of preposterous, right?
Well, yeah, and in fact, I've been speaking with some Russian sources that said, hey, if you ever wanted to see a situation where the people of Russia could turn against Putin, it's not because the war goes badly, it's because Putin would surrender territory without need from a position of power and strength. And I don't think that Putin's going to have any interest or any thought of doing that kind of thing, because he has got his reputation and his name on the line. He has told all those people that everyone's there, even those on the side of the line that Ukraine still has control over. He said all of that area is incorporated and into the Russian constitution. He would have to go back and change his constitution in order to give that, in order to surrender that to Trump. And I mean, I just can't see how Putin would survive politically if he did that, because everyone in Russia understands he doesn't have to, as opposed to this alleged comment you mentioned a second ago from Zelensky, who also cited his constitution as to why he can't give up the territory. But the problem is it always comes down to what you can do and what you can't do. And the reality on the ground and spin will no longer help you out. Russia can commandeer this territory. They can require it, and the Ukraine side doesn't have the power to deny it. So you can either have an ugly deal to where you only surrender the administrative orders of those territories, or like I said, the likelihood is that Russia is going to keep rolling to the west until they get everything that they feel they need, which probably means everything up to the Dnieper River.
Can we go back to the map for a second? Because this is from Russian state media. And what they're telling us is that the blue dots are where the Ukrainian army is stationed. Why the heck are they not on the battle lines? What are they doing so far from the war? And if you think of this as a U.S. taxpayer, knowing that you're funding this war, why are we funding the army where the war is not?
Yeah, up towards Belgorod. I don't know, Colonel, if you can see this map on your screen, but
they are far north of where the contested region is, clustered in those regions. Something that a former Azov lieutenant colonel said on X this week is that the front lines are an absolute hellscape. He says that these newly formed corps have inherited a disastrous situation, which basically means they keep getting these untrained soldiers. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the expertise. So we're backing people who are suffering needlessly. So is there any tactical reason that those troops would be where the war is not? And what do you make of this assessment?
Yeah, I would have to see where that map was drawn from, because, I mean, I can tell you for certain that that's not the only places where the Ukraine forces are. They are most definitely in those areas all throughout the line of contact, because there's fierce clashes that go on all the time from the north to the south, all the way through there. But the problem is that there are just too few of them. This is something I've been reporting on our channel for quite a while now, a number of months, because it's coming in from both East and Western reporters, that there are just insufficient density of Ukraine troops. They're just spread too thin. And now then, this is the first time we've seen what we've been predicting, which is finally there were just so few infantrymen to hold territory, and the Russians had so many infantrymen, they were able to penetrate the lines, break through the fortifications. And in fact, many of the fortifications, which was reported and puzzling by many of the Russian side, or at least surprised, that they weren't manned. There were some really good fortifications, trench lines, etc., where sometimes they were even equipped, but there was no one there because they just don't have enough to fill all the gaps. And then when Russia starts really stressing a lot of people in over a broad front like this one in north of Pokrovsk is, they just don't have the people to do it. So the problem is that they're now trying to pull people off of some of those territories to move them in to try and stop the bleeding here. There's an Azov brigade that's allegedly been dispatched from Kiev to get down there further. I just don't know that that's going to be able to help it, because this new formations are coming in where they don't have defensive positions. And to underscore the real problem here, it's not just that Russia made a big penetration, but it's where they did it. This is like the pivot of the entire eastern line of fortifications for the Ukraine side. And if this is pushed much further beyond, then Russia can literally roll troops in behind the rest of the formations, and both north and south, depending on how many forces Russia has to exploit this. Yeah. And I don't know for sure on that, but all of that could really unhinge the entire defensive line, and this could go south in a big hurry.
Yeah, and by the way, someone in the chat was saying that map is propaganda, and then someone else in the chat was saying, no, that map is not propaganda. Those maps overlaid are exactly from the Ukrainian side and the Russian side. You can almost match them up verbatim now, and you can see And there was very little difference, in fact, in any of these maps at this point, where the Ukrainian soldiers are in the north in Belgorod near Russian borders, far away from what was the contested special military operation areas of Luhansk and Donbass and Donetsk and et cetera. So not to go down that rabbit hole, but I just want to point out about the idea of this being propaganda.
Well, I do want to point out there, because that's important, because there are some reports that Zelensky, and this is, in my honest opinion, an example of how bad of a tactical commander he is. I know he's always talked about being a Churchillian type figure, but he is reportedly sending additional troops into the Sumy area to try and make another incursion into Russia and in Belgorod areas there, because he's desperate to have some kind of good media coverage to show that they're on the offensive and taking the fight to the Russians, et cetera, which he says every time they do these kinds of things prior to Friday to make it look like they're stronger. To make it look like they're stronger. This is a suicidal operation when your forces are being penetrated in a crucial area in the east. That is the worst time to divert any of your forces up to an operation in the north that cannot succeed, but yet that's exactly what appears to be happening.
That's a great point. That's a great point. The last time they did that, they were slaughtered. And they got a few drones that attacked some apartment complexes, but the soldiers that went across got slaughtered.
But that's what makes him a demon, is that he's willing to risk so many lives for a little PR juice. For lack of a better word.
That's what happened in Bakhmut. That's what happened in Avdiivka. That's what happened in Krinky in the south. That's what happened in Sumy, in the Kursk area in the north. And then now, not only did they lose all that territory, now then Russians have a big toehold in Sumy province that they probably wouldn't have had before had it not been for that. So every one of those, every single one was a military disaster. And now then the biggest one of all seems to be unfolding in Pokrovsk.
We'll get you out of here on this, Colonel, which is about Zelensky and what he thinks he's going to be able to ask for in Alaska at this summit.
Well, he's not going what he can send on a note.
But so anyway, what he thinks he's going to be able to ask for through his intermediaries or whatever, wants some sort of robust security guarantees in the form of weapons and a path to NATO membership. So NATO membership? I mean, is any of this going to happen for Ukraine or Zelensky at this summit, do you think?
Listen, I think just not trying to be mean or rude or anything else, but Zelensky has lost his ability to accurately assess what's happening on the ground. He is genuinely delusional, and unfortunately that delusion is fed by many of the European leaders who are saying the exact same things that you did. Apparently there's going to be a big meeting tomorrow where they're going to try to get together on a conference call with President Trump, and they're going to try to convince him not to give away anything to Putin. They want territorial guarantees. They want security guarantees, which is code for leaving NATO on the table. Keir Starmer has said just in the last 72 hours, NATO is still on the table and is still possible for Ukraine, etc. Basically, they want to go in as though they were in the position of authority, and they're convincing Zelensky, or not that he needs any convincing, he's eager to do it, but they're all on the same sheet of music, which is opposite of where Trump is, and there is no reality to that. There is absolutely no leverage that they have that they can bring to bear on here, and it really puzzles me why they're still saying those things.
Colonel Davis.
I'm fine with being mean or rude to the Zelensky administration. He's cost so many people their sons.
Colonel is nicer than you and I.
Fair point.
We'll be mean and rude. We appreciate your tactical and I would say diplomatic response to this.
Some people in the chat said, yes, Colonel Davis is here. So thank you as always, Colonel. Great to see you. Kino says, this Colonel knows what's up. Yes, he does. Colonel, great to see you as always.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Colonel. All right, coming up on the show, we're going to talk about D.C. Mean and rude.
That's my favorite.
Mean, rude.
Wait, which one am I?
Which one do you want to be?
Yes, absolutely. I'm mean and he's rude.
Okay, mean and rude.
I would say that's accurate.
Welcome to Redacted. I'm rude. You're mean. Mean, I don't know which is what. Hey, coming up, we're going to talk about the federal takeover of Washington, D.C. Democrats are calling this mean and rude. They're saying that this is cruel, certainly to the homeless population and all those criminals that are breaking into bodegas and stores and mugging different people. It's mean and rude to go after those people. But President Trump has a plan.
It's nice, though, to let them freeze and starve on the freezing streets of D.C., I guess.
So we'll talk about that in moments. Yes, we will indeed. We're going to talk about about that in moments. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Black Forest Supplements, because I just found something wild about stem cells. They're like tiny little repair crews in your body. They go in and fix things that need to be fixed. So check out Dr. Eric Berg, one of the most watched health educators on YouTube. He's been talking about this for years. Watch.
A stem cell is kind of like this reserve cell that can pretty much change into anything that you need. They're using it now to regenerate fibrosis, which then allows the heart muscle function to improve by 30%. They can do the same thing with liver fibrosis and damaged brain cells. They're getting great results stimulating new cartilage in your joint. Some people are using it for autoimmune diseases like MS, and also to help rejuvenate skin cells to actually make the skin young again. There's also stem cells for cancer. It's very important to understand how to keep that stem cell population at the highest level.
So stem cells are crazy expensive if people do it, and upwards of $50,000 for some of these treatments. But actually, studies have shown that the flavonols that are found inside of cocoa actually stimulate the exact same thing and stimulate them to come out of your bone marrow, sort of like bees coming out of a beehive in your bloodstream. Check out Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee. He actually backs this up. Listen.
So studies have been done to show that the flavonols in cocoa stimulate stem cells to come out of your bone marrow like bees in a beehive in your bloodstream, and they go out and they find wherever it needs to be repaired. If it's in your heart, they'll fix it. If it's in your liver, they'll fix it. If it's in your skin, they'll fix it. And so we can eat foods like high flavanol cocoa.
Yeah. So this isn't your average cocoa, by the way. It's a stem cell power up. If you mix it in coffee or protein shakes, it tastes great. No sugar, only 20 calories. If you're experiencing significant aging, slow recovery, weak immunity, you're always sore after a workout, if you're just feeling off, you can blame your lazy stem cells. Cocoa flavanols activate them like a fountain of youth in a scoop. So right now, go to blackforestsupplements.com/redacted. Get 40% off for the next 48 hours. Try the high flavanol cocoa. blackforestsupplements.com/redacted. Mix it into your protein shake. Mix it into your coffee, and it tastes delicious.
Well, President Trump took control of Washington, D.C., and the police on Monday using Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act. He says because there is so much crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor in the Capitol. Now, the White House released this fact sheet to show that crime is anything but safe in D.C. Now, many are saying that these are inflated statistics, but it's hard to know for sure because the FBI switched crime reporting statistic methods in 2024. So we literally cannot compare apples to apples. Under the Biden administration, the FBI began using the National Incident-Based Reporting System, or NIBRS, which replaced the old system, which would only record the most serious of the crimes. So, for instance, if someone was sexually assaulted and then murdered, only the murder will go on the log. But now we're counting both things, the assault and the murder. So it stands to reason it would seem there's more because we're actually counting things now. Still, most people agree that D.C. isn't this postcard image of a safe and beautiful city. And so the question is, how do we rein it in? There actually is precedence for this, for successful aggressive intervention using the National Guard and federal law enforcement. In 1919, in fact, Calvin Coolidge faced a crisis when he was the governor of Massachusetts. He sent in the National Guard, and it was a success. It actually propelled him into the vice presidency. Now, no one is saying President Trump is Calvin Coolidge, but the question is, could federal control actually secure D.C. for law-abiding citizens? But if this works, does this become a template for the federal government to do this in every crime-ridden city, Chicago, L.A., all the way on down the line? And would that spark a constitutional crisis over states' rights? Well, our next guest is a former New York Police Department lieutenant. John Macri says this is not a good idea because you may like the idea under one person, but what happens when we get a new president? Would you like AOC to be in charge, for instance? That's a terrifying prospect, and we have to think about this from all angles. So thank you, sir, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me. You know, I think it's a much bigger issue because we see in blue city police departments throughout the country, they're having the same problems that the Metropolitan Police Department's having. The misrepresentation of crime. We're seeing police officers flee. They have the inability to recruit and retain officers. And while I support the move by President Trump to come in, I question how effective it'll be. Is it a temporary Band-Aid? And what will be done to alleviate the corruption that inside of these departments? And I know we're using the home rule here in Columbia, but he's mentioned Chicago, New York City, and I don't know the legal precedent for him doing that there.
No, you bring up a great point about the corruption, because we've had FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin on, Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle, great friends of the show, and their frustration is that the corruption inside the FBI, like, you can come in at the top and you can make some changes, but you've still got the rot. You've still got the people that are in there who are like the bad apples, so to speak, who the DEI bad apples, I guess you could say. So how are you going to sort of motivate these people to go out and start cleaning up the streets?
Well, so one thing I hope to see is that the people, the bad apples at the top of this organization are actually removed, because unlike federal consent decrees where we have on the 13 police departments in this country currently, unlike that, this is actually the federal government running the police department. The federal consent decrees that we've seen in the past, they're just oversight for the government, right? The same leadership's in place. They're reporting what they're doing to the government, and the government's coming down, sort of supervising from a distance. Where here, the federal government's actually saying, no, I'm in charge now. I'm the chain of command. You're reporting to me. You're going to do what I tell you. And so, I mean, I think the first thing that you would need to do is get rid of the leadership who's misrepresenting crime statistics, who's forcing officers out, who's pushing discriminatory practices in the police department, and who's lying to the public. I mean, you know, what we see in blue city police departments is they've become the political arm of the mayor, and they're used to do anything but fight crime. What they're doing is they're campaigning for their mayor for the next election. Crime's down, everything's your perception. And the residents of each community saying, crime's not down in my neighborhood. I don't feel safe taking the train. And again, it's a national problem in big blue cities.
So if the DC Police Department were functioning as you think it should, in order to keep people off the streets, in order to keep crime down, what would they need to do?
You would need to install leadership with integrity. You would need to empower the police officers to be able to do their job. So, you know, the police officers always get a bad rap for, the misreporting of crime, right? And we've had the Metropolitan Police Union head come out bravely and say that the chiefs at the top of this department are telling the rank and file officers and sergeants and lieutenants, you're not going to report these crimes. Any major crime that happens, violent crime, they're showing up on the scene and having these officers change that report. Now, if you're not removing that leadership, you know, that rot stays there, right? And we're not able to fix the problem if we don't know what's happening. If everyone's telling us crime's down and we're not properly taking in the amount of robberies that are happening, the amount of violent assaults that are happening, how could we properly deploy resources and go out and build criminal patterns and go out and arrest the individuals that are committing this crime? You can't. It's basically like the blind leading the blind. And by doing such that, by putting in leadership with integrity, and empowering them to tell the truth, fight the actual crime that's out there. And this will send a message to the rank and file officers that they're supported, that they're wanted. This will help police departments like Washington, D.C. and the NYPD to recruit officers, to retain officers with experience. But right now, we're chasing any officers that are God-fearing and abide by the Constitution. We're chasing them out of law enforcement in all of these blue cities, particularly in Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. But what about the courts? I mean, you heard Judge Jeanine Pirro, my old colleague at Fox. Now she's it's funny how many people from Fox end up like working in the administration. But anyway, there she is. And, you know, she's got to deal with the laws. She's got to deal with the court system on top of this. And someone just brought up a great point. And, you know, is Trump going to take over the judiciary too? Because, you know, you get somebody arrested, they go through the process, and then they just wind right back up on the streets again.
That's a good point.
What do you do about that?
So I think a major problem is, again, we have our police departments playing politics, right? We're misrepresenting crime. When we're arresting people, we're undercharging them. So we're giving these district attorneys an easy out, right? If I arrested a guy and he really committed a felony, but I'm only charging him with a misdemeanor, it's very easy for a district attorney to drop that charge and say, give him a slap on the wrist for an ACD, or, you know, don't get in trouble again for 6 months and you're fine. And if we actually properly report crime and charge charge people appropriately, now we put the ball in the court of the district attorneys, right? And we have competent police officers, and we put together competent cases using competent detectives, and we put open shut cases in front of their desk, and we hold their feet to the fire. Now, at the same time, if they're not going to prosecute that case, that's when you use your bully pulpit. That's when you go out and say, hey, look at this. This woman was robbed. This was the evidence we attained. This is what the district attorney decided to do. But instead, what we're doing is we're playing politics for the mayor, who usually aligns with the woke district attorney in the blue cities. And I mean, we've seen that throughout the country. You know, Eric Adams, me and Alvin Bragg are one and the same, you know, and it's, you know, you constantly hear it, our partners in the DA's office, and they're anything but that. And so we're again, they're using our officers as political pawns, and they're using the crime numbers and the dumbing down of crime statistics to actually help the woke district attorneys to be able to drop that case without it being an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what is your response to liberals who say this is not compassionate? Criminals deserve to be treated like humans. Homeless people should not be stigmatized. I think that might have been my response when I was liberal, but now my heart bleeds for the victims, for law-abiding victims who have to live in these hellish neighborhoods, who get preyed upon. It's not, you know, the liberals who live in gated communities. It's poor, underprivileged people who get preyed upon. And one of the more eye-opening experiences that I had was reading San Francisco by Michael Schellenberger, who said these homeless people, they want to be taken in and rehabilitated. Who wants to live like this?
Who wants to live on the street with a rat chewing on your earlobe
right.
every
Is
night?
that compassionate to just leave them there? So there has to be some solution. What's your response to this sort of, oh, this is not compassionate, this is mean?
You know, most of the things that we're seeing in these big blue cities is that there is no compassion coming from the government, right? From the politicians, because we're leaving people out on the streets to die. We're spending billions of dollars for the mentally ill, but somehow it never trickles down to the mentally ill. And when you go out in the homeless populations throughout this country, I mean, we have homeless that commit crimes during the winter to be arrested so that they could go to jail, so that they could survive the winter in jail with food and warmth. Like, is that compassion? Is that what you want us to do? You want us to jail people for being homeless? Because that's what's happening. I've done it myself. I've had people commit crimes in front of me, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, I need to go to jail. I'm going to die out here. And then when I offer to bring them to a shelter or anything like that, they don't want to go in because the shelters are so poorly mismanaged and not safe. They feel safer in jail. And so like compassion isn't always what it's being sold at. And you know, and that's another thing that that the federal government should be looking at in these blue cities is these contracts that are going out to these not-for-profits that are supposed to help with the homeless and the mentally ill. Like what are the measurements, and how are we saying that these things are that these programs are successful when we have no metrics for success? And yet every year we see more people on the street, more homeless, more mentally ill, more violent incidents from the mentally ill, more people living down in our subways. And you know, to me, there is rot and corruption at the top. And the only way to get rid of it is to hold the people that are directly accountable for this corruption, hold them accountable, whether they be charged criminally or if it's just administratively, and remove them from the positions they're in. It has to happen at some point.
Yeah, and someone in the chat says, I just want our shithole cities across the United States to be finally cleaned up. I mean, you hear this from everyone you talk to, like fleeing the cities because of the crime, the homelessness, and the destruction of America's cities. It's not just D.C., right? I mean, it's Chicago. You know it better than anyone. I mean, it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean, and again, they all follow the same blueprint. They all follow the same playbook. If you look at, you know, you see Brandon Johnson, he's touting crimes down, shootings are down, right? And it just happens to correlate with Chicago pulling down shot spotters in Chicago. The equipment that would go off every time a gunshot goes off. When you look at New York City, they're touting historic numbers, shootings are down. Meanwhile, we had 15 shootings over the weekend. And the shot spotters in all of the violent neighborhoods, all the cops there, they're consistently telling me, they're like, dude, I haven't heard a shot spotter in a year. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know. They don't go off. We don't get the 911 calls. And guess what? Shootings miraculously go down. And it's the same programs. It's the same DEI stuff that comes in our police departments. And they literally move and talk in lockstep. If you listen to Brandon Johnson, or you listen to Eric Adams, or you listen to Ross Barker, it's always the same thing. Mario Bowser, they literally following a blueprint of destruction. And and playing politics, and they're using their appointed police department heads to be their puppets, to be their talking head. They're like, no, crime's down. It's just your perception. Shootings are actually down. You're safe here. It's just the media. It's just those right-wing media that's pushing all this out. Don't listen to those people. And people are like, well, I don't feel safe, you know?
And they call those shot spotters that like listen to the gunshots, they call them racist.
Yeah.
Just like,
I have one more question. Is there any chance that this works? What if it works? Then what happens?
Absolutely. Then I think, I think then the question is, how do you do this in a Chicago? How do you do this in a New York? The District of Columbia is its own unique entity. So I think legally that's the question. I haven't found it. I was actually kind of curious on how that would be done. But if it works, it could be a blueprint that we should utilize. Because again, the issues that are in Washington, D.C. has a spotlight over it right now. But you can move that spotlight to New York. You can move it to Chicago. You can move it to LA. You can move it to Boston. You can move it across any major blue city police department. Wherever there's a mayor who appoints a police commissioner and that police head is not accountable to the citizens of New York or to the Constitution of the United States of America, you're seeing this play out. So we might be highlighting Washington, D.C. today. It should be a highlight across this nation and fix police departments throughout this country.
Right.
John is the host of the Finest Unfiltered podcast. Great having you on. The first time having you here on Redacted. Love to have you back, John. Great to see you, and thank you so much for your work. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it. All right.
All right. Well, coming up, we're going to talk about what is happening in Spain. Dark forces. We're going to talk to Father Robinson. We're also going to talk about whether or not we need to go to war with Mexico. I don't like the way I just put that. I don't mean that. We're supposed to be an anti-war show. And I'm saying, do we need a war? In general, I think we don't. But what's happening there? Do we need to be prepared for something? But before we do, we want to tell you about our friends at American Financing. Because what if you could delay your mortgage payments, maybe 1 or 2? Imagine just putting those payments in your pocket and giving yourself a little breathing room. Well, that's possible when you call American Financing. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas, bills, you're not alone. The new CPI numbers came out. Inflation is still positive. Things are still getting more expensive. And most Americans are putting those expenses on their credit card. But there does seem to be a way out. If you call American Financing, they'll show you how to use your home equity to pay off your debt. If you call, their salary-based mortgage consultants can help homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt without upfront fees. They are saving their average customer $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 per year raise. It's fast and simple and could save your budget this summer. So call now before it's too late. 866-890-8434 or visit AmericanFinancing.net. Once again, that's 866-890-8434 today, or go to AmericanFinancing.net/redacted. I don't think I said the redacted last time. You see it there on your screen. Go there.
We got a super chat here. Thank you for your $10 super chat. Free Men Die says strengthening police is not a solution. They issued $444 million speeding tickets last year. No thanks. Second Amendment, as intended, is the solution, not revenue generators. So just have militias hitting the streets. Well, that's why you see so many people buying up as many guns as they can get their hands on right now with the crime that's been spiking. All right, let's talk about this. Spain, illegal immigration.
No, actually.
Nope.
I think we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the war on drugs.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
That's what we're going to do. Well, the New York Times is reporting that President Trump secretly signed a directive to the Pentagon to begin using military force against certain Latin America drug cartels. There's no sourcing in this story, so we're going to take it with a grain of salt because it is the New York Times after all. But is there any truth to this? Would the U.S. launch ground forces against the cartels? Drone strikes maybe on drug labs, maybe carry out missions on cartel leaders. We don't know what this means. It literally could be anything. We know the cartels are very sophisticated. We know they have drones. We know they have tracking software. Is this a war we're even prepared for? The Times said this is tricky because it would raise legal issues, including whether it would count as murder if U.S. forces acting outside of a congressionally authorized armed conflict were to kill civilians who pose no imminent threat, to which I said, LOL. Ever heard of Syria? Yemen? Panama City? Afghanistan? What makes this a concern all of a sudden? I don't understand, but okay, yes, that should have always been a concern. I'm with you on that. Now, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says, no way to this. Absolutely not. No U.S. forces will step foot in Mexico to go after these gangs. Is that because she's on this one? She's handling it?
Yeah, right. Okay.
She's got this? Well, go ahead.
Yeah, Auden Cabello joins us now. He's an independent journalist who's been covering the cartel wars and U.S. involvement. And, we've been covering it here on the show quite extensively. Welcome to the show. And, we hear regularly that no one in the Mexican government is separate from the cartels. So is that why Claudia Sheinbaum is saying no to American forces here? Because these are the people that butter her bread, so to speak?
Well, it's great to be with you, and absolutely, that's one of the things that have evolved throughout the years. Is that at one point, cartels were local, regional, and now they've evolved to the point where they're intermarried with political parties. They're one and the same, and that's why you see Claudia Sheinbaum defend them the way she does. Is because to go after the cartels is to go after the corruption and the politics in Mexico. And it's one of her arguments is that the U.S. would be invading Mexican sovereignty. And there's some of those that have been arguing, well, what about the sovereignty? Where was the sovereignty when, Venezuela is in Mexico or Iran and other countries are using Mexico as a springboard to operate into the U.S., whether it's spying or with cartels. There's reports already about other countries operating with the cartels in Mexico, providing technical know-how as far as like the drones you mentioned, armed with IEDs that cartels are infighting using these drones. And now they're being used at the border to supervise or monitor law enforcement. It could be, the day could come where these drones are used against law enforcement, U.S. law enforcement. And so that's the whole argument as far as how intertwined cartels are with politicians in Mexico. And I think it's going to take more for the Trump administration than drone strikes or have intelligence on the ground. I know you had my colleague Todd Bensman a few months ago, who's now with Tom Homan on the Trump administration, talking about ICE agents now getting intelligence in Mexico and with these drones spying over Mexico. I think it's going to take way more than that to really battle these cartels. Somehow the Trump administration is going to have to drive a wedge between cartels and politicians. And also on the cultural front, which, by the way, they're doing a great job on that front by revoking visas to artists that are talking about and glamorizing the cartel lifestyle. Even corrupt politicians, either at the state level, where the mayors, governors, they're revoking these visas, and it's causing repercussions in Mexico, where now they're turning against each other. And so it's a hard task at hand, but nothing impossible, nothing that the Trump administration can't do.
So what do you think of this prospect? I saw an article you had tweeted about how we are preparing for the wrong war because we're not really, it's more likely that we would go to war with Mexico than Russia, and we are not prepared for that. So is there any path to success in a war against the cartels?
I think there is, but it has to be on different fronts, not just on economic front, whether with tariffs or diplomatically, revoking visas. I think culturally, that's also a front that has to be approached, and of course, militarily, and not the military strikes that we're all thinking about. Maybe drone strikes on the labs. I think it's going to be more complex than that. Like I said, the drones are already being used to monitor law enforcement on the U.S. side and being armed with IEDs and used against each other in Mexico. And so I think we talk about the border wall. I think cartels are now moving into sea and underground. Here pretty soon we'll be hearing more about tunnels being used to transport drugs. But now, as we mentioned with these drones, now they're going into the air. So I think it's it's a multifaceted front, not only with military strikes, but I think like I said, culturally, diplomatically, on every front. At this point, Mexico is pretty much lost, and I don't think internally they'll be able to combat the cartels. I think it'll be an external force, and who other than the United States to help Mexico out.
But then what?
One of our viewers says, Go Blue Forever says, we would need more than just special operations. Send the Marines as well. U.S. Air Force, Navy airstrikes on compounds. I mean, look, I'm vehemently anti-war. I just want to say that. I'm vehemently anti-imperialism, anti the United States invading other countries. That's what our whole show is about. But when we are being invaded by these cartels in the United States, I mean, we are technically at war with these cartels, are we not?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I spent 8 years on the border, living on the Mexican side, covering the border crisis under the Biden administration and covering it from the Mexican side. The whole focus was on the what we call the give-ups, or those seeking asylum, like the Venezuelans and Cubans, Haitians, that would look for Border Patrol and turn themselves in. And while that was happening, we lost sight of the gotaways, mainly Mexican nationals that were sneaking into the country. And which, by the way, they're still doing. I know we focus on Trump's success of the 94% that he's stopped at the border, but I focus on the 6%. Like, who are they? And for the most part, they're the Mexican nationals, the gotaways that are avoiding law enforcement. They're still happening in remote areas here in Texas, whether it's in the Big Bend sector or the Rio Grande Valley. And amongst those are cartel operatives that now they're operating within the United States. They made it in under the Biden administration, and now they're fully operational here in the United States. And so I think this front is not only to go into Mexico, but also here inland, is to combat them here internally. And I know it's rarely reported on, but some of them are even within our law enforcement, our government. And so I think it's a long battle, but like I said, it's possible, and we need a clean house here first, and then take that into Mexico somehow, and drive that wedge between cartels and the corruption in Mexico.
Now, when Claudia Sheinbaum uses this strong language, like absolutely not, you cannot invade Mexico, we would consider this an invasion, there is part of me that I'm embarrassed to admit is like, so what? We did that in Syria. We did that in Iraq. We can do what we want. And this is, I like I said, that's not a good attitude to have. But who the heck would stop us? Right?
Well, Iraq wasn't invading us. Syria wasn't invading us. These are the wars that we go out and we kill millions of people, and they weren't doing anything to us. But here you literally have them doing something to us. So
right. So my question is, we do what we want. Who would condemn us if we actually did on the basis, the valid basis that we are being invaded?
Israel.
Exactly. So that's a great question. And the answer is, I mean, even if you look, I still have family in Mexico, and I have colleagues, friends, I have business owners, and they're all for Trump, as they say, invading Mexico, because at this point they feel completely lost. They don't trust their government.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's corrupt. And so if anybody, it's going to be Trump. And they tell me maybe perhaps after this interview, or every time I do an interview, they'll send me a message and say, if you can, reach out to Trump people and tell them that we support him in invading Mexico and helping us out, because we don't trust our government anymore. They're all corrupt, and they're not going to help us. And so to your point, to your question, I think you're exactly right. I mean, what's to stop the United States to go after these cartels?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, someone in the chat says, "Oh, so Clayton, then you're a P word. You're a wimp for not wanting to invade other countries." No. Again, I don't want to invade other countries, but when another country that's on our border is literally invading us and putting the crime and destruction and the rape and the child trafficking and the drugs into the United States of America, that is a national security issue. But Iraq wasn't invading us, so I see strong differences there. Auden, great having you on the show. Real treat to have you here. Excellent work, and really appreciate your thoughts on this. We'll have you back real soon.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you. Great guest. What do you guys think about this in the chat room? I mean, someone in the chat room says, "So Clayton, what you're telling me is you're a pussy."
Well, how? Because you don't want to
because I don't like to invade and kill millions of people in just random other countries. No. Again, I'm drawing a distinction here.
I don't think we said what we wanted. We're trying to play out the different angles.
Yeah.
What I want is there to be no drug trafficking and human trafficking, if that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to get these comments.
I also would like a cold iced tea. I mean,
what
does it matter what I want?
My McDonald's iced
oh,
tea.
no, I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, like, what we want is never relative to what we cover here. We want almost none of this to be happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let us know, though.
All right, we've got more news to get to here on the show. We are going to talk. Did I just use that word in front of a priest?
He's not here yet. Oh, yes, he is here yet. And yeah, you're going to have to confess to him that you used a bad word.
Oh, my God, I'm sorry. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about Spain in the midst, it seems, of a Christian revolution, going back to its Christian roots, maybe, in the height of all of this illegal immigration that has basically destroyed that country. You know, Portugal in the past few weeks voted to close their borders down. They are done with it. They realize their country is being destroyed. Protests erupting all throughout the country of Spain, demanding that their country close its borders and return to its quote-unquote Christian roots. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of the protesters, putting up crosses all over Spain. I think it's when things get so bad, this is what they are turning to. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're also going to talk about the weird DC Masonic, the dark forces that have really infiltrated the Masonic order and maybe taken hold of Washington, D.C., why President Trump's sort of lockdown move on Washington, D.C. is much darker to overthrow these satanic forces in Washington. We're going to talk about that with Dr. Michael Sala in just a moment. But first, I am a huge fan of our sponsors over at Soul. I love these guys. Okay, after a long day, you might have poured a glass of wine or you got a beer and then you'd have another beer or whatever. You've all been there, and then you wake up with a hangover and you feel like crap. Well, that's where Soul comes in, okay? They have a right balance of CBD and THC to ease you into just a relaxing evening. No hangovers. They have their out-of-office gummies and drinks. I'm a huge fan of their drinks, I will say. You can have one or two of them and you feel really nice and relaxing, non-alcoholic. You can drink freely, not have not get a headache the next day or anything like that. Really, really nice. With wellness at the forefront, you can feel good about what you're putting in your body. All of Soul's products are made from organically farmed, USA-grown hemp. They're vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and federally legal. So bring on the good vibes. Treat yourself to Soul today. Right now, Soul is offering our audience 30% off your entire order. Just go to getsoul.com. Use the code REDACTED. That's getsoul.com. Promo code REDACTED to get 30% off. I'm just telling you, order like one of their cases of the out-of-office beverages, a refreshing alcohol-free alternative, great for like the summer winding down, just socializing with friends. Your friends will love them, I'm telling you. And especially if you want their sleep gummies, too. A couple of our friends use their sleep gummies, a fan favorite, deep, restorative sleep. Give them a shot today. GetSoul.com. Use that code REDACTED to get 30% off your order. All right, let me pull up my notes here. We've got a lot of craziness going on today. Let's talk about Spain now. Illegal immigration to Spain has increased 82% in the last 3 years. The country is collapsing. Many Spanish are saying enough is enough. We want our country back. Protests over the past month, protesters taking to the streets all across the country, from Barcelona to to Seville to Madrid, all asking for the mainstream media to actually cover what's really happening there. But the mainstream media is ignoring this story. And Spanish, it's amazing to see Spanish people going to social media. They're saying, why won't like CNN, why won't the New York Times, why won't people cover our story? We want our country back. That's because it doesn't fit their narrative, Spanish person. Liberal media wants illegal immigration and they hate Christianity. So they're thrilled that your country is being invaded. So we'll do the work for the mainstream media because they are losers. Spanish are saying we are Christian. We are a Christian country. We are not a Muslim country. Spanish patriots taking to the streets, declaring Spain as a Christian country, holding banners for re-immigration and chanting Spain is Christian, not Muslim. Spaniards want mass deportations. And then, of course, in the past week, Spanish social media accounts celebrating the cross that has been remounted now on top of Mount NATO. It's been restored. And so many social media accounts in Spain were blowing up, saying it's about time. Father Robinson, is joining us now to talk about this, the changes coming to Spain. Is it too little, too late? Father, great to see you. You saw what happened in Portugal in the past few weeks. The parliament there voting, saying enough is enough. The Chega party has a lot of sway in that country now, saying we're closing our borders down. We've given up a lot of our resources to people from outside of this country, illegal immigration. The same thing now in Spain, but you're having this clash between Muslims and Christians, and Spain saying we want our country back. What do you see happening here?
It's the same thing we see across the whole of Western Europe right now, whether it's Spain, Portugal, France, or my homeland, Great Britain. There's been mass migration for such a long time, but not just illegal immigration, also mass legal migration, because the liberal establishment for so long has been pushing this border-free, globalist, one world Europe entity for such a long time that people have not remembered that they are sovereign. Countries are sovereign, and they have the right to defend their borders, the right to defend themselves and protect their nationhood. That's a good thing. But the establishment, and when I say the establishment, I mean the government, the mainstream media, the NGOs, the non-government organizations, the lobby groups, all of the elite, the metropolitan elite, have been conspiring against ordinary people. And you can only do that for so long until ordinary people start to push back. We're seeing that in Portugal. We're seeing that in Poland. We're seeing that now in Spain. Just last week, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of people out on the streets in Spain wearing Knights Templar uniforms, for goodness sake. And this is a reminder. Yeah, they were dressed fully as knights, walking the streets, just saying we are a Christian country, because it was 722 AD that the Reconquista started, right? Because Spain was conquered by Mohammedans before. It took them 800 years to win their country back. They don't want to have to go through that again.
Now, what do you think that they're asking for specifically when they ask to be a Christian country, a country with laws, a country with morality? I mean, this is a very large umbrella, but what do you think is the populist call?
That's such a good question, because people often misinterpret these signs and these words. When I, for example, would call myself a Christian nationalist, and there's certain people that say, what, you want to oppress everybody and make everyone a Christian? Like, no, I am a Christian. I believe Christianity is the truth. I believe it's beautiful. I believe it's good. And therefore, I want my government to govern with a Christian moral compass. And the Christian morality teaches many things, such as the Ten Commandments, but also that we have free will. So we don't subjugate people. We don't force people to become Christians, but we recognize that it is the truth, and we encourage them because we want them to go to heaven and we love them. But a Christian nation just means that it's a nation where you can celebrate God freely. You can choose to worship him, whether it's as a Protestant or a Roman Catholic or somewhere in between, doesn't matter. But if you choose not to worship God, that's also part of your choice. So Christian nationalism means that electing representatives who are Christians, who recognize the difference between good and evil as stated in the Bible, and legislate based on that morality. Because everyone legislates based on a morality, whether it's their own abstract ego or some other religion. And so I say Christianity, being the one true good religion, is the best religion to legislate based upon.
But the Christian Bible calls for law and order. People in the Christian Bible are punished when you do bad things to other people. So do you think that they're also asking for a justice system where law-abiding people actually are protected from those who don't?
Well, yeah, like the people that got stabbed and nothing happened to them. They literally, these illegal immigrants stabbed an elderly couple, and what happens? The people had to take the streets and demand justice for themselves. Like the police didn't do anything.
Justice is so important. You're absolutely right that if we don't get it from the system, we become vigilantes and we take it into our own hands because we recognize in our hearts that we need justice. And so we want to see it. And if we don't see it done, we enact it ourselves. Britain's a great example of this. We have a two-tier system. In fact, there are more Sharia courts in the United Kingdom than there are in the rest of Europe combined. Worse than that, they're leaking out of Europe and spreading around from Great Britain to the rest of Europe. And in fact, there are many organizations in Britain that are proscribed as extremists by places like Qatar and Saudi. They won't have these Mohammedans in their countries, but they're in the United Kingdom and they're headquartered there, setting up their own legal system. And our government says, great, you can moderate yourselves. What most people in Britain want is equality under the law, not Sharia law for them and a different law for us. Just today I reported on Isabel Vaughan Spruce being arrested once again for silently praying in her own head within the bounds of an abortion center. Apparently, it's a thought crime now to do that in Britain. Yet, you'll see Mohammedans with their bombs in the air on their rugs in the middle of the road. No one dares say a word to them. So it's one rule for me, another for thee. And that is hypocrisy. And the Bible teaches strongly against hypocrisy.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. This would never fly in Saudi Arabia. If these individuals carried out those same crimes in those countries, I mean, well, we might never hear from them again. That's the maybe asking is, who's pushing back on this? Where is the pushback? What sort of dark forces are pushing back against sort of law and order throughout?
I would call them the metropolitan liberal elite. We're talking the people who congregate at Davos for the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and the likes, Bill Gates and co. People who are unelected, yet hold more power and influence than our officials. It's a great shame to see this so-called democratic West that we live in not being very democratic. But then democracy has become an idol of late anyway. We used to believe in a divine right of kings because we expected our kings to govern based on the rule of God. Again, Christian morality, Christian nationalism, recognizing that there's someone or something greater than themselves that would hold them accountable ultimately for their actions. We don't have any of that anymore. We have a whole host of elite who think they are gods and want to govern so that they can increase their vested interests, essentially. And their vested interests never align with ours, unfortunately. And so when they're chasing GDP as a measure of whether a country is successful or not, basically how much money they get into their bank accounts through lobbyists and whatnot, what they're looking at is numbers. They're not looking at people. And nations are built on people. We conflate country and nation quite a lot these days, but a country tends to be geographic. A nation is a group of people. My people, the British people, have been on the land for centuries, if not millennia, and we don't want to be invaded. We don't want to be replaced. We don't want mass migration, whether legal or illegal. And it's great to see places like Spain and Portugal starting to fight back. I hope to see the same happen back at home too. But this large Christian cross, I think it's Mount NATO, that was just recently renovated and replaced, is a wonderful sign of that. I've been seeing this across France as well. There's a group called SOS Calvary, who are just a group of young volunteers that go around refurbishing crosses. It's actually illegal to place new crosses up in towns and villages in France, believe it or not. So what they do is they look where one was historically, and if it's no longer there, they go replace it. Or if it's crumbled and broken down, they go and rejuvenate it and renovate it. And so they've replaced almost 1,000 crosses across France right now. This is what we need to see. This is a revival. This is regenerating Christian nationalism across the West, because it's the only way we survive as a people, whether we're looking at Britain, Spain, Portugal, or Poland. It doesn't matter. Proclaiming Christ as king is the only way to survive when we're the onthwart of illegal mass immigration from mostly Mohammedan countries is looking to replace us because the elite want a fast buck.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that assessment. We really appreciate it, Father Robinson, as always.
Thanks, Father.
God bless you. And no more swearing.
Ooh, you were busted.
I'm from Philadelphia. Trying.
So is the Pope. The Pope. The Pope went to school in Philadelphia. He keeps it clean.
Because the Pope can do it, I can do it. Thanks, Father. Thanks, Father. Okay, let's check in here. How is our audio? We had some crazy technical issues here. Fixed? Everything's good? Audio's good? Everything sounds good to you guys? Let us know in the comments below. Yes, Calvin, he is a smart guy.
Everything is good.
Everything's good? Okay, good.
Roger that. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about, is there a darker reason that the president wants to take over D.C.? You're going to want to stick around for this. But before we do that, Clayton will tell... What?
Yeah.
Clayton's going to tell you about our friends over at Brightcore Nutrition.
Indeed. Microplastics are everywhere now in our food, our drinking water, even our air. A new study shows 94% of us U.S. tap water, bottled water, worldwide contain microplastics. They're in 88% of our meat and our seafood. Even if you eat clean, you're still taking in plastic. It's damaging your health from the inside out, damaging your gut bacteria. That's where Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition comes in. It's one of the most powerful natural detoxifiers on the planet. It contains a unique probiotic strain proven to degrade BPA, plus over 900 other strains that help flush out toxins, restore your gut health, and support your immune system. This isn't just about digestion. It's about protecting our future. I take it every day. I take 3 of the pills every day as part of my supplements. Natalie does too. My mother-in-law does. My mom does. And you can get 25% off with the code REDACTED if you go to mybrightcore.com/redacted. Or here's the best deal. You can call them. If you actually get on the phone, you'll get 50% off and free shipping. Why? Why would they do that? You know why? Because they want to actually develop a relationship with you and actually, you know, they love for you to be like a lifelong customer. I mean, that's the benefit of actually talking to someone and developing a relationship. So then you can call them, 888-404-6312, get up to 50% off and free shipping. And they're an American company. Again, detoxify your body, rebuild your gut, take your health into your own hands. Start today. It's part of my daily ritual to be healthy. MyBrightcore.com/redacted. Well, our next guest says that everyone is missing the true intention of Trump locking down Washington, D.C., trying to federalize the police force there and take things over, trying to eradicate crime. He says to pay attention to Trump's words. In yesterday's press release, Trump said, quote, "I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back," end quote. Dr. Michael Salla says everyone is missing the real story here. There is a hidden intent in his press briefing to liberate Washington, D.C. from the satanic forces that have run D.C. since its establishment. And Dr. Salla says it all has to do with the Freemasons that built Washington, D.C. and were infiltrated by dark forces. So to help educate us on this topic and dive deep on this, so many people have been asking, bring up the Masons on a regular basis in our comments feed. Dr. Michael Salla. Michael, it's great to see you again. We haven't seen you in quite a while. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Great to be back.
So can you explain, as we look at this unfinished pentagram here on the show, on this map, can you explain to me, like, first of all, what are we looking at here, and why do you think that this is a deeper move by President Trump to stop these demonic forces in Washington, D.C.?
Well, that dates back to the design of Washington, D.C. by a French architect, Pierre L'Enfant, who was a Freemason. And the Freemasons understood the power of symbols, occult symbols, such as the pentagram, which is a way of being able to create a power vortex for various ceremonies. And so as far as the Freemasons associated with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were concerned, they thought that this Freemason symbol would kind of like help establish or promote their idea of the new Atlantis, that America was the new Atlantis. It would be a place of high technology, abundance, and show the way for the rest of the planet. But what happened was that the Freemasons were infiltrated at the higher levels, and this is something that I've been able to confirm, that Freemasonry today at the 33-degree level, those that achieve that rank typically have very positive views about Freemasonry and helping establish their goals, their positive goals. But at that level, 33rd degree, they are introduced to the deeper, darker mysteries, and they swear allegiance to these satanic forces. And these satanic forces are connected to extraterrestrial life that many Freemasons at that higher level believe who it was that established the ruling bloodline families going all the way back to Sumeria, Babylon, and so forth. And so these ruling bloodline families, they believe that they are the direct descendants of the gods, or the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, and that those who are worthy of the truth will be initiated into those truths. So that's how they establish secret societies. But it is something that is segregated from the most practitioners of Freemasonry who know nothing about this up until the 33-degree level. And if they progress beyond that, then they're initiated into the kind of satanic practices that are what enables a lot of these ruling bloodline families to get their power and to control the rest of the world.
You know, a lot of people on our chat room are saying you're spot on about this, and there's some really deep, dark forces here with this. A lot of people in our chat room saying that this even goes much higher than sort of like the levels that we know about in Freemasonry. there's like a whole other section of levels inside of this. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. A number of people in our chat room are saying that.
Yes, well, those that progress beyond the 33 degree level, they are initiated into all of these occult programs dealing with extraterrestrial technology, ancient builder race technologies, and even being a part of these meetings with visiting extraterrestrials. There are both positive and negative extraterrestrials. The US government in the 1950s under the Eisenhower administration made agreements with some of these extraterrestrial races, and they have joint projects. So people who are initiated at those higher Freemasonry levels are part of those classified programs. People call them unacknowledged special access programs, and they will go wherever there's a crashed UFO, wherever an extraterrestrial is captured, wherever they find some ancient technologies, such as in Antarctica and so forth. There'll always be a high-level Freemason there above the 33-degree level who will essentially kind of like take control of the situation. And you have the military, which is merit-based. Obviously, they are also having a very keen interest in all of these technologies and these extraterrestrials that are part of how the planet is governed. And so there's a power struggle between these high-level Freemasons above 33 degree and the military, the rank and file military, who want to take control of these advanced technologies for the betterment of society. And so this power struggle, I think, is what's reflected in what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. I think Trump federalizing police in Washington, D.C. has much more to do than just dealing with criminals, petty crime, homeless vagrants and so forth in Washington, D.C. This is the move that the White Hats have been waiting for, to finally take out the satanic cults that are in charge of Washington, D.C. and of these deep, dark projects that are all about control of these advanced extraterrestrial technologies. And the pentagram that you showed earlier on is vividly demonstrates how this was, from the very beginning, envisaged by these higher level Freemasons. Now, many critics will say, well, that's not a pentagram, that's something else, because you don't see it joined. You see the line from that one of the lines doesn't extend across to complete the pentagram. Well, actually, in occult circles, this is described as an incomplete or broken pentagram. Now, a pentagram normally is something that you can use to protect yourself from satanic forces, but the broken pentagram is an invitation for satanic forces to come out. And so you have that pentagram immediately above Washington, D.C. And I think this is what the intent was from the very beginning, that at some point Washington, D.C. Would really be subverted from its goal of, or the original intent was to establish the new Atlantis, something positive and hopeful for all humanity. But instead, through the broken pentagram and the establishment of these satanic groups in Washington, D.C., that control the power elite there, it became the center for this very aggressive American imperialism, which we have witnessed all around the world. But I think Donald Trump, he's working with these very positive white hat forces, the Earth Alliance, to take Washington, D.C. back and to remove the satanic groups from the power they hold. And they are very, very dark and very powerful, but they can be removed from power.
Well, we know how deeply dark these satanic forces are in Washington, D.C. I mean, just hear the horror stories, these parties, all sorts of really disgusting stuff that happens in Washington, D.C., whether it's, on the child trafficking side or just these weird parties. It's really deeply disturbing. So based on your research, you know so many of these insiders who've been speaking to members of Congress and other members. Do you believe that Trump is on the side of the White Hats with this, and that there is an active movement to try to maybe excommunicate some of these satanic forces in D.C.?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we know now that Trump's being briefed about this positive extraterrestrial alliance called the Galactic Federation. We know that from Professor Haim Eshed. David Grush has also said that Trump was briefed. And we also know from an Italian newspaper, Espresso, that said that Trump was briefed about Project Preserve Destiny. And Trump was told by the Galactic Federation that in order for disclosure to happen, in order for all of these advanced technologies to be released and the extraterrestrials to show themselves, that global peace has to be established. And then that's going to enable these advanced technologies to be released. And so to establish global peace, he has to remove the satanic deep state, which is behind all the wars and the imperialism that's been happening under the American flag for many, many decades. And that's what he's trying to do now with all these peace agreements. He's meeting with President Putin on Friday in Alaska. All of that is deeply symbolic about this white hat effort, this effort by Christians, leaders that believe in Christian values and in a positive future for America and for the planet, to come together and to remove these very dark Satanists from power wherever they are. So I think that's really what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. And in order for Trump to succeed and move not just the United States, but the whole planet into this future where we have open contact, then he has to bring about world peace. He has to remove the deep state Satanists from power. And he's using all the resources he has as president, as commander-in-chief to do that. And I think that's what's really happening in Washington, D.C. right now.
Well, I think people need to open their eyes to this. If for people watching this for the first time and this is like new information to them, I mean, just dive into the research here. You can read more at exopolitics.org, which is your website. Also, just read the revelations in the past 24 hours. I'll get you out of here on this, Doctor, which is this UFO whistleblower who has now testified on Capitol Hill, physicist Dr. Eric Davis, he's worked on top secret Pentagon projects. He described to members of Congress 4 different types of aliens that have been operating unidentified craft. Congressman Eric Burleson, who's been on our show multiple times, said that he also heard this separately and confirmed that those same 4. So members of Congress now confirming what these whistleblowers, Dr. Eric Davis, has been saying. What do you make of that? These 4 different alien races that we know about, that the government knows about. I mean, there are people who are going to be skeptical about this, but I think you and I have seen too much.
I mean, they're preparing the American public and the world public for future disclosure. I truly believe that once Donald Trump succeeds in cleaning out the satanic forces from Washington, D.C. and from other world capitals with the support of other major Earth Alliance leaders, that there will be disclosure where you will have the president and Pope but jointly introducing these human-looking extraterrestrials. And I think that what we're seeing now with people like Eric Davis and others coming forward talking about different types of extraterrestrials is they're getting the public prepared that, yes, there's been positive and negative extraterrestrials, and they are going to say that right now the United States is working with these positive extraterrestrials and the negative ones have been driven away, because this is one of the things that at the moment evangelical Christians in the United States are very, very concerned about. They talk a lot about negative extraterrestrials, abductions, greys, and so forth. And so you have people like Chuck Meisler talking about these extraterrestrials being demonic, satanic, and so forth. But what the president wants to do, needs to do really, is to educate the American public that, yes, there are negative extraterrestrials doing terrible things, they have done terrible things, but there's also positive ones that are doing many very positive things, and we need to work with them to take us into a galactic future.
Dr. Michael Salla, you can read all of his great books about the secret space program. He's really an incredible source for a lot of this information with really top-notch whistleblowers and insiders who've spoken to him over the years. Doctor, great to see you again. It's been too long.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks, Michael. Great to see you.
That was amazing.
It's fascinating.
Amazing.
And, so many people in the chat room are like, this is just like literally scratching the surface. And then you have other people saying, this is nonsense. But those, you
Okay, say that. Yeah, but say how. Provide substantive.
No, but most people have heard a lot of this before. And even someone in the chat room was saying, Eisenhower warned all of us about this, like knew that it went actually pretty deep. And Eisenhower warned us about a lot of things that he warned JFK about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So pretty wise guy. All right. We're going to take some of your super chats here, but before we do,
we want to tell you about our friends at Buy Optimizers, because if you are tired of feeling tired and are always hitting the snooze alarm when you wake up, well, the problem could be that you don't have enough magnesium in your diet. Magnesium Breakthrough is an all-natural supplement that helps you reduce fatigue and sleep more peacefully. It even helps strengthen muscles and improve your heart and brain function. While most magnesium supplements aren't full spectrum, Magnesium Breakthrough is the only magnesium supplement on the market that contains the optimal ratio of all 7 essential types of magnesium. So imagine having the strength and energy to get out of bed in the morning and face the day boldly and courageously, to be able to show up as your best self. Now, most doctors these days are pretty hip to this and are recommending magnesium supplements. And in fact, when I took my kids to the pediatrician, she asked about it for my teenager, for my 15-year-old, and she asked what kind I was using, and I told her about Magnesium Breakthrough because it has 7 essential forms of magnesium, and she was very impressed. She had not heard of this before. She was adamant that you do need a broad spectrum of types of magnesium. So check them out for yourself. Head on over to buyoptimizers.com/redacted and use the promo code redacted during checkout to save 15%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you'll make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. So one more time, go to buyoptimizers.com/redacted. Use the promo code redacted. Once again, buyoptimizers.com/redacted.
So in our chat says, wow, such a touchy topic. Thank you for covering it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we'll cover the dark forces in DC and the hidden Masonic symbols there. We're not. Someone in the other chat says, wait a minute, is this an old Art Bell show? And I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. I don't know if they meant it as a compliment.
That
but
was lost on me.
Art Bell, of course, who used to host Coast to Coast before George Norrie did. Yeah, back in the day. But yeah, we cover all topics here. All stuff that the mainstream media will largely ignore, or they will laugh at you about it. Or this always drove me nuts about mainstream media. They'll do like a UFO story, but they'll do it at the end of the news block, and they'll play like a little music with it. They're like, "Hey, was that a bird? Was that what is that up in the sky?" And they always like joke about it. Always drove me nuts.
Yes, I know this.
It bothers me. It bothers me. Thank you for all you do. Let's see if I can click. These fly by so fast, David, that I can't. By the time I try to find one, I can't even click on them. They're so fast.
Yep.
Yeah. We. Someone says, let's see if I can try to click. I can't even get it. I'm trying to.
We had that one.
Yeah, but I didn't try to hit that one. We have a 7-mile wired interstellar object coming. Yeah, we covered that last week on the show. I can't click on these. I wish there was a way to slow this down a little bit. Just like 1 second if I could slow it down. An old Art Bell show, you disgust me even more. Thank you so much. Let's see. Art Bell had images. Oh, Art Bell had images. PJ Pickett says, I can't click on them. There we go. I clicked it. Wow. Art Bell had images of demons showing the smoke of the smoldering World Trade Center towers. Scary stuff. Did he really? I didn't see those. Actually, no, I did. I didn't know that he was him that had it on his show. That's great. Yeah, George Norrie took over Art's show. And avoid a tragic Art Bell style ending and go with the peaceful revolution Olympics. I don't know what that means. Paul, anything you want to read over here?
Please give Natalie her own show. I wanted to read that one. I'm just kidding.
Okay, please.
No, Natalie doesn't want her own show. I need the camaraderie. I'm a loner enough as it is. But I came in right in time on that one. Bring on David Icke. Okay.
I would love to have David on. You know, he's very difficult to get a hold of. He won't from what I understand.
I know that name.
David Icke? Well, he's in, I think he lives on the Isle of Jersey, I think.
Something like that.
In England. I mean, David Icke was one of the OG originals, like calling out these government conspiracies and things and the dark forces inside of our government and the deep state. He was the one talking about reptilians and these dark extraterrestrial reptilians, like David Icke. He's written multiple books on it, where people like call him crazy about it. But there's been, in the years since he was like one of the old school guys calling this out, there's been so much other validation from other insiders in the secret space program and others who validated his work. So I would love to. I'd love to do a deep dive, but it's one of those things where I'd love to go sit down with him and do like a 3-hour interview with him at some point. Isle of Wight. Yeah, Isle of Wight? I don't know exactly where he is. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. You guys joining us. And guy from Falcon. You guys talk about the guy from Falcon War Games. I'm not sure. Yeah, I would love to bring David on.
All right. Natalie, read the book, The Game to Set Captives Free. I'll look that up if I missed it. Okay. Thank you.
Someone asks, can you guys give me a book recommendation on the Weimar Republic? There was a book that I read years ago on the Weimar Republic. See if I can find it. I had a list here. And From the Weimar to Hitler.
Or He Came to Set Captives Free. Sorry, I got that one wrong.
What are you saying? Oh, I don't know what you're saying. You're saying the Weimar?
Interesting. No, this is, somebody asked me to read this book. I think this is what this is. I'll keep looking. Thank you. But you can also reply me on X as well.
There's a book that was written in the early 1900s, not early 1900s. I think it was, I don't know how, it's old. I think it's out of print now. It's called From Weimar to Hitler, Germany 1918 to 1933. I read it years ago in college. The hardcover version, you might be able to get a paperback. And maybe the reason why it's not printed anymore is because it's probably telling you the truth. It's $131 hardcover now, but see if you can get like a paperback or a Kindle version of it. It's called From Weimar to Hitler, German 1918 to 1933. Anyway.
Ooh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
The book that somebody just recommended about recognizing and fighting attacks of Satan, witches, and the occult. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Someone says, if I can pull this one up on the screen, I can't get it. As soon as I scroll up and try to click, it just goes by. I can't get it so fast. Anyway, someone was saying Ike is great, but he's years behind the current war that's happening. And maybe, I think that's what happens maybe to a lot of people is that they've been focused on something for so many years and then maybe like new things come out and maybe they're still stuck. I don't know. I don't know enough about him, to be honest with you. I'll be 100% honest with you. So, but I think he does incredible work, and a lot of people are way behind on his. I know Derek Brose interviewed him as part of his Pyramids of Power series.
Which is great. By the way, we're going to talk to Derek later on this week coming up. So if you're not watching that, you're definitely going to want to. He has proof that Avatar was created in cahoots with the Department of Defense. It's crazy. I mean, you think you know all this stuff, but you don't. So, yeah, if you're not watching Pyramids of Power, get on that, folks.
Luis Perez, thank you for your $9 super chat. Says New Jersey drone mystery, black helicopter conspiracy, the UN takeover. I'm not sure if that is a statement or a sentence or what, but the drone mystery. Yeah. Well, now that we're entering into this massive drone era with all of the drones that the United States is pushing, and Trump the other day was asked about it, and he said, I know all about it. It's nothing nefarious. So it's part of some deeper drone program because the United States now wants to become like the leader in drone production. So is that why we're starting to see these drones and they're testing them, or they're saying that they're from Iran or something else and we need to have our own drone fleet to combat them? I don't know. All right. Hey, we have a newsletter. It publishes daily. We'd love for you to subscribe to it. Again, it's totally free. If you just go to redacted.inc, sign up for it. It'll be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. It's the world's best newsletter. You can drink it. You can drink it. You can read it while you're drinking your cup of coffee in the morning.
Or drink it and eat your cup of coffee.
Yeah. You can eat the news. You could print out the newsletter and eat it for breakfast.
Please
it's that good.
Don't.
Go to redacted.inc. Check out our new website, redacted.inc. We've rebuilt the website from the ground up. Go get the free newsletter. There's a tab right at the top that says sign up for the newsletter, and it'll be delivered to your inbox tomorrow. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time, guys. We really appreciate it. Our summer schedule will be coming to an end very, very soon. We'll be back to our 4 days a week right after the Labor Day holiday. Now that the kids are back in school or about to be back in school. So we will be back to regularly scheduled programming. You ready for that?
Mm-hmm, I think so.
You ready? I am too. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.